With another video. Got some very sad news. Well, it's not too sad, but the Dulsol is acting up. I mean, my Dulsol has been acting up for a little while now, and I mean acting up as in like it'll misfire for like a complete second, and then after that it'll run perfect. Well, as of yesterday and a little bit of today, she's just running a lot worse than she has been. So it's time to diagnose on what's the problem. So after reading around and a little bit, found out it's actually the valve cover gasket and the gasket for the spark plug wires. So hopefully I can replace this today, and hopefully that should fix the problem. Now, which was not really funny, but I was planning on actually doing this year in spring. Just replacing everything and make sure everything's perfectly fine before I go to any car meets. So unfortunately this is happening too soon. So yeah, I'm going to replace the valve cover gasket, replace these seals. I got my Corona, 24-ounce Corona. That always helps with the job process. And then I got some new spark plugs. The guy at O'Reilly said I really don't need to put new spark plugs in, but since I'm there anyways, might as well replace them. I got some gasket maker to go around. I'll show you guys more in depth. So let's go outside, work on the Dulsol. It's not what I had in mind today, but hey, it's alright. So we'll see you guys outside. Alright, so now that we're at the Dulsol, if you're also doing this on a 94 Honda Dulsol with the 1.5, you're going to need a 10 size socket for these smaller bolts. And then you're going to need a 5/8 to loosen up the spark plugs. And I'll show you a nifty way to take out the spark plugs after you loosen out. So next, what you want to do is, once you have the valve cover come off, you got to make sure you have a needle nose to take off this hose that leads up to the intake. So what you want to do is, use a needle nose, pry that grommet off, and then just use a shop towel and just clean around the whole entire head. Clean up all that oil. You want to make sure it's a nice clean surface. Because since you're going to be adding a new gasket to it, you're going to want to make sure that that surface is clean as possible. I know you can use acetone, very little bit, just dab it on the rag first and then clean around it, and then use another rag to clean off that acetone so it doesn't ruin the gasket. I probably wouldn't recommend using that acetone. I know I've heard people using it, but I personally would not recommend it. Now I'm gonna come back to you guys. I'm gonna scrub everything down, make sure everything's perfect and nice and clean surface for the new gasket. That's all done. You could also use a razor blade, go around, clean up the edges, and then go over it with another shop towel. Now I'm going to show you guys how to take out the spark plugs after you loosen them up. So what I like to do, and for what I've learned, is that you take that. Ooh, there's one, two, three, and four. What I would also recommend is to grab a brand new shop towel that's all nice and clean and start cleaning off these spark plugs wires. You don't want any oil on it to affect any of the new spark plugs. Okay, those are all clean. Now I'm going to clean the valve cover. I'm going to clean the valve cover, so I could get a proper seal for the new gasket, and I'll come back to you guys. Right, so now I'm going to show you guys something. I just cleaned the valve cover. Now for the hard to reach places, what I'll do is grab a shop towel and wind it up like this in a needle nose, and then you can go around to the places where you can't get to. I actually just discovered this, and so far it works absolutely amazing. So just a little pointer. All right, so now you got everything all cleaned up, everything all figured out. You're going to use a gasket sealer. What you're going to do is you're going to put a good thick line of this gasket sealer around the distributor, and also over on the other side where the timing belt is. I know you can't really see, but it's right in that area. That's actually the most common place for OEM gaskets to give out at. So with this, you're allowing to get that extra, give you that extra gasket, just to make everything all sealed properly and make sure you don't leak any oil in the future. So what I like to do is I actually like to start from the back to the front. Back to the front. Oops, sorry guys. slow and steady wins the race, okay? You don't want to rush too soon, and you don't want to go too slow, because then that line would be way too thick. There, I feel like is a good bead line for that gasket. I definitely wouldn't go any slower, or definitely don't go any faster. You want to make sure that gasket is a good solid gasket. You don't want any weak points in there. That's also going to help even more that once you put the new gasket in and you tighten everything all tighten up, it should evenly spread everything out. But you still want to make sure you have a good solid line on that. Like I said, from the back to the front. Alright, now once that is completely done, I would recommend using a bolt for that so your gasket maker doesn't dry out. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys some just an idea. You guys don't have to exactly do this if you don't want to, but I put in the brand new gasket. It seems to fit in there very loosely, which I honestly don't know how I feel about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go very thin line all the way around, as thin as you can possibly make it, just so it's all nice and sealed in there, and you put the new gasket in there. It kind of keeps it from popping out as you're putting the valve cover back on. I've already put in the brand new gaskets. You can definitely tell that these are completely worn out. So yeah, I'm gonna go all the way around, as thin line as you possibly can. Well, it is a little thick in some parts. Now I want to give you guys a heads up. Now, yes, I did a gasket all the way around, plus putting in the new gasket in. But like I said, this is very optional. I know once you have to replace this again, it's gonna be kind of pain in the ass, taking out all this old gasket, and so this is optional. You can do it if you want to, but I don't really care. I just want to make sure everything's all nice and secure. I know I did go a little heavy on the gasket maker, but I think it should be alright, hopefully. Alright, so now I'm going to clean up the edges, clean out the excess stuff, and clean up a little bit, and I'll be right back. I got the valve cover back on. Now, the main keys when putting this back on is do not tighten it tight. You want to keep it nice and snug. And once it's nice and snug, come back in about, I don't know, about a couple more hours, and then check the tightness of it. Now, what I would recommend, this is just me, is to do the same bolt pattern as you would when you're putting on a tire. Just so you're setting everything nice and even. Because what mostly happens is that if you start from the left side to the right, or the right side to the left, or front to back, that it's going to lay the gasket down uneven. So if you do the crisscross, you'll get a more accurate, tight. And then just go around. Just like I said, you don't need these too tight. Come back in a couple more hours, check the tightness of it. If it's too loose, obviously tighten it up, but do not like torque it down to 100 pounds per bolt. It doesn't need that much. Just needs to be nice and tug slow. And then I also bought some brand new spark plugs. And with these, you want to do the same thing. You want to put them in about finger tight. Finger tight allows you to, so it doesn't cross thread. You're not cross threading anything. So finger tight first, then come back at it. And then come back and tighten it back up. Now with spark plugs, you don't need them too tight either. Okay, perfect. 2 more to go. So yeah, like so for this gasket, for the 1.5 non-VTEC motor for the Honda Del Sol, it costed me $30. It comes with brand new these gaskets, and it gave me, of course, the valve cover gasket. Plus, I bought brand new spark plugs. I bought I also bought the gasket maker. I think I don't remember how much I spent, but I know it was like less than 20 bucks. So something cheap to do. Now, if this doesn't fix your problem, then I'll come back to you on that. I'll do another video on how to fix the problem. Now, with this gasket maker, the blue gasket maker is that it says allow it to fully dry 12 to 24 hours. Now, I don't know if that's absolutely correct. Like, I don't know if you could put the gasket and then 5 hours later come back and drive it. I don't know if you can do that, but at least come back and check if these are still dry. I mean, still wet. If they're still wet, then obviously wait. Okay, those are all tight. Oh. There we go. Now it's time to put all the hoses connected. Put all the hoses back on. Make sure everything's perfect, and I'll come back to you guys real quick. Back together. Now it's time to put the spark plugs in. Clean them off, make sure there's no debris. I had a couple of little red fuzzies on that from that rag I had. Okay. And then also double check your spark plugs. Make sure that the spark plug wire sits in the spark plug perfect. Now the best way to tell is if your spark plug meets that connection right in there, is if you'll feel it pop. Yep, just make sure everything's fine. I'm gonna go around and clean this gasket up so it dries better. Now the number one important rule is clean up after yourself. Clean up your mess. Whatever mess you make, any boxes that are being blown around by the wind, pick them up. Make your community cleaner. So I'm gonna clean up a mess, and I'm gonna clean up that gasket. That is it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys actually learned something from how to replace your valve cover gasket and also your spark plug wire gasket too. Now, like I said, everything I did in this video is somewhat optional. You don't have to do some of the stuff that I did in today's video, but you know, it's completely up to you. Now, like I said, if that didn't fix the problem, I'll definitely make another video trying to diagnose the problem and see what I can do to fix it. So that is it. I will see you guys in about 3 more days. Christmas. All right.